In this video, I'm going to be using the ContentAware Move tool in order to move elements within a Photoshop composition around and not have to mask them or do anything else to them to make them look like they belong. This is a really powerful and relatively new tool in Photoshop. So I'm going to start. I have my document set up in exactly the same way as before. I have a group down here that's locked, and I have my spot healing brush layer. I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer by pressing Command-Shift-N or Control-Shift-N if you're on Windows. I'm going to name this ContentAware Move. Hit OK. All right, so I have this on a new layer. I find the ContentAware Move tool under the Spot Healing Brush tool. So if I click and hold, then I just find my ContentAware Move tool and select it. Up at the top, we have some settings up here. We have a different mode, moving and extending. You can play around with this and see what this does. I'm going to leave it on Move. And the most important thing, just like with our spot healing brush, we want to have sample all layers selected. This is how we do it non-destructively. So I have sample all layers selected, and I'm going to zoom in to my subject. And this tool works just like the lasso selection tool. So as I click and drag, I'm drawing a little circle, and I release, and I've drawn my selection around this rock. So I want to move this rock. Then I simply click and drag and move it and hit return on my keyboard. Now what it just tried to do was basically it selected the area around my rock and the rock itself and then moved it to a new zone and tried to do a content-aware fill, just like how we use the spot healing brush. It tried to fill in that background, and it did it pretty well in this case. There's a little error with this, this small shadow here. I'm going to go ahead and undo what I just did and try a different selection this time. And I just drag and then hit return, and that's much better. And hit Command-D or Control-D on Windows to deselect everything. And that's the basic ContentAware Move tool. Let's do something a little bit more complicated. It's kind of like magic right now, right? Just moved this without anything on our part. Let's go ahead and move over to our tree and talk about how would we move this tree. So we can actually make the selection using any tools. We don't have to use the kind of awkward lasso selection that ContentAware Move has. So I'm going to use our quick selection tool. I'll make my brush a little smaller and draw within this selection. All right, cool. I have my tree selected kind of roughly. I'm going to switch back to my ContentAware Move tool. That's J on the keyboard. And I'm going to click and drag and hit return, and let's see what happens. So it moved it, but it definitely left this kind of weird ghost image here. Now this is because the ContentAware Move tool needs a little bit extra space. I'm going to go ahead and undo that by hitting Control-Alt-Z or Command-Alt-Z. Now I have this selection, right, but it's right on the edge. Right now it's right on the border of this tree line. I actually want to expand this selection a little bit and then move it. Now I can do this by going up to Select, Modify, Expand. I think 5 pixels is a good number, but you can change this number and see how it affects your selection. And I hit OK. And see, all it did was just grow our selection a little bit. Just expanded it just a bit. And let's try our ContentAware Move tool again. And I'll hit return. Much better. There's still a little bit of an error there that we'll fix in the next video, but as you can see, it generally moved my tree around. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Move tool, press Command-D or Control-D to deselect everything and zoom out. And it looks really great, especially at full size. Now at any time we can turn this off and on, right? Because just like the spot healing brush layer, we've made a new layer and this is non-destructive.